It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Shorman, and this is a special edition. In fact, it's probably one of the best editions ever of our ECTV, Eagle Communications Forum program. Our guest today is Senator Bob Dole, and the Senator is visiting Russell, Kansas on his Kansas tour. And today was a special day because you had a dedication over at the VFW. What happened at that dedication today?
Well, first there were a lot of people showed up. I thought there'd be 4 or 5 there, but there must have been a couple hundred. And what we were doing was sort of dedicating this bus that's going to travel all over Kansas. It's an educational, and they're going to educate veterans and nurses and others on what's available to VA, and it's going to be good for western Kansas, where we don't have as many facilities as they have in the larger cities.
The VA had been in the news, so it's really nice to see that kind of positive thing happening in the VA.
Yeah, there are a lot of good people in the VA. I mean, I suppose 90-some%. The people at the top would cause the problems. But the working people that come from, towns like Russell or Hayes or Salina or even Wichita, they work hard and they do what they're supposed to do. But the people at the top are cheating a little bit, quite a bit.
Have you been involved with some of those things? Are you still involved with some of those processes?
Not closely, but I still follow it very closely because one of the hospitals bears my name, and I was interested to see whether or not there were any transgressions at the Wichita hospital, and there were. There were some veterans who waited months for treatment and to see the doctor. Not many, but some. But I've talked to a lot of veterans on my tour who use that hospital, and they praise, they said they were taken good care of. They're very happy with the care they received. So it wasn't across the board. I think it was just in a few cases.
Well, you're on your tour of Kansas, and part of the tour of Kansas, and some of the big news media has interviewed you on, I know Harry Smith followed you around for a while. One of the things we wanted to do on this program, because it's more regionally and local based, is to talk about your start in Russell. Because you're a legend here, but you started here. What and who got you into politics?
Well, a fellow by the name of John Wolk, who's no longer with us, but he was an attorney here in Russell and a friend of mine. And when I was about to graduate from law school, he said, you ought to come out and run for county attorney. And I hadn't really thought about politics or what I was going to do. And so the more I talked to him, the better it sounded. So that's how I started in the county attorney's office in 1952, I think it was.
Well, that, did you have a big campaign bus at that point?
No. No, I just tooled around by myself and tried to visit a lot of farmhouses because I knew farmers and their wives voted. And I spent a lot of time, of course, in Russell and Dorrance and Lucas and even Paradise. There are not many people in Paradise, Kansas, but there were a few, and there were good supporters.
Politics has changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
But back then it seemed like that handshake meant a lot. And you go across kind of western Kansas, you go over into Ellis County, and there's a lot of Democrats. But you did an amazing job of working not only with Republicans, but also with Democrats.
Well, it was my view that once I was elected, I represented the people, not Republicans. I represented independents, Democrats, Republicans, and people who didn't really vote. If they had a problem, we tried to fix it.
When you came back here today and on your other trips, what do you notice so much different today than when you started going around the county shaking hands?
The thing I noticed first is how few people are still around that were my campaign workers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a new couple of generations. And they'll come up and say, you knew my dad, or you knew my grandfather. And in most cases I did. And but of course that has changed. That's been the biggest change I've noticed. We've been in 58 counties so far. We have 47 left.
What's it like to be traveling through 58 counties of Kansas and not campaigning?
Feels good. You don't ask for anything. You're just, as we tell them when we start every meeting, or not meeting, just visit. You know, I don't have any agenda. I'm not here to ask for your vote or ask for your money. I'm just here to say thank you. And I think people appreciate it because there are some of my supporters still around. One in Atchison was 98 years old, and he was there all dressed up, and he was a big supporter of mine when I was campaigning for Congress and the Senate, well, for the Senate. And, you know, I've met a lot of old friends. I just met Bob Schmidt and Bob Schultz, who was a local dentist here and a fraternity brother of mine at University of Kansas. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work.
And a lot of miles in between all
Oh,
these
yeah,
communities.
a lot of miles. Next trip in mid-July, I think we cover 13 counties. Then I'm coming out for the state fair, where I think I'll see a lot of Kansans. But it's just thanks for everything.
Well, when you started here, and you started here, but when you started your presidential campaign, and some of your others, you were always basing that out of Russell.
Right.
And it seemed like you've had that, not everybody keeps that home connection like you have. It has to be a special feeling to now be able to come back again after all those, say, starts, announcements, live points that started right here in Russell.
Well, it was my view that they gave me a start in politics, and the least I can do is respect that and come back where my people really know me and know Bob Dole and knew his family, and you know, they're all friends. In our town, we knew about everybody on first name basis. And it gives you a lift.
You know, my guess is you could probably get a lot of votes today if you want to get back on the campaign trail.
Yeah, I'll probably get the senior vote. I'm not sure about the younger vote, but.
You mentioned younger vote. That's interesting because there's a new generation. You worked both sides of the aisle, and there seemed to be a spirit of cooperation in Washington. What about the new young people that are, you know, they are on Facebook, Twitter, and I'm not sure they've ever seen cooperation in Washington. What do you tell the young groups?
You know, one thing I've picked up in my travels, there's a lot of distrust of Congress. A lot of people don't think they're doing anything except spending money, and there are a lot of younger members want to be president. I don't think we've seen the Republican nominee. Democrat nominee is probably Hillary Clinton, but it's different with younger people. You know, most of them aren't interested in politics. But those who are, you know, really work at it.
Would you encourage a young person that's out there right now to get into politics
Oh, yeah.
and be a part of that? Because you've put your whole career into it.
That's how I got started in a different way. We had a law librarian named Beth Bowers, who happened to be a Democrat, but she thought more young people ought to get into politics. So she talked 4 of us into running for the state legislature back in 1950. And I ran in Russell County and beat an incumbent. I only served 1 term. Then I came back to be county attorney. But yeah, I think there's always an effort to motivate young people to get involved in a party of their choice. And I think Democrats have done a little better job than Republicans.
When you look at, my guess is you still probably get people call and ask about that, like for support. That you have people call and say, what should I do? What should I say? And will you support me? Are probably some things you hear.
Oh, I've heard it in my tour. You know, how do you get started? And I tell them to get involved in a campaign, whether it's city council or county commissioner or county office. Just get a feel and see if you really want to get into politics, public service, or maybe there's some other area. And so young people are interested.
And you hope it happens also in western Kansas and the rural parts of our state where certainly we need representation, like you had given us for so many years as a part of that. You know, when you travel Kansas, and you mentioned the meeting earlier today where hundreds of people were there, when you were in Washington, you carried a big stick as Majority Leader of the Senate. If you had that stick today, what would you do?
I'd try to get something done. I mean, Harry Reid's a good friend of mine, but he's been stopping everything the House passes. And not everything the House passes probably should be passed, but at least ought to be voted on. So again, my policy was to try to work across the aisle. Nothing wrong with working with Democrats. If they have ideas and they want to get something done, and we can't do it on a party line vote, you reach across the aisle, you reach a compromise, whether it's Social Security or a farm bill, whatever it is.
You know, one of the things that you see happen, and you mentioned, is that nothing gets done, votes aren't taken, but there's such a polarization. Did you have to reach across the aisle to the Democrats, or was it just a different feel?
You know, I don't want to be critical of the present Congress, but I just had a lot of friends on both sides. We got to know each other. We knew each other's wives' names, and we talked about their children in school. And so you had a little camaraderie there, that if you needed some votes, you could go to those people and say, I really need your help on this legislation. If you have an amendment, maybe we can work it out. And it paid off. I mean, I know some people say, well, Bob Dole is not a conservative. I'm a traditional Republican conservative. I'm not far out in right field where they just vote no. And to me, that doesn't represent anybody to vote it. Some things you ought to vote no on, but not everything.
Well, it's great to have you here. We're going to take just a quick break, and I want to come back and ask, as you look back, what are some of those things you would have liked to have done a lot more of, and maybe some things you would have liked to have done a lot less of?
probably.
Okay, so we'll take a break. Our guest is Senator Bob Dole of Russell, Kansas. We'll be back after this.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications. Our community connected.
We're back with a very special edition of the Forum here on Eagle Community Television with our guest, Senator Bob Dole. And Senator, we were in the break talking, did a farm boy from Kansas that, or I guess a city boy from Russell, but lived in the rural areas of Kansas, did you ever get out on a harvest crew and a tractor and do some of those things?
Yep. When I was in high school, I remember driving in truck, driving wheat to the elevator for Mr. Ehrlich, who lived south of town, and then driving a tractor for Mr. Graham and plowing up his land. So I had some of that experience.
You had some real dirt on your hands if you were out plowing somewhere.
That's right. It was kind of different, for somebody who lived in town to go out in the country and live there and work there. I found it helpful later on, at least when I was on the Ag Committee for 36 years, I at least knew what a farm was and what they do on a farm, and my dad dealt with farmers all his life, so I had a lot of association with local farmers. In the early days of my political life.
Well, we're still in the harvest season. My guess is you could get a job if you needed to.
Yeah, but unfortunately the wheat not yielding much this year.
Yeah, the rains came at the wrong time.
That's what I was going to say. We're getting the rains now when they want to harvest. But I just talked to one farmer as I left the ceremony this morning. He was headed for the harvest fields. He thought his wheat would make 30 bushel an acre, which is pretty good this year. It's not a bumper crop, but the price of wheat is high, so he was pretty happy.
Have you ever thought that maybe a lot of our politicians ought to spend some time out on a tractor or out on a farm or maybe in a rural part of our country?
Yeah, I thought at one time we ought to exchange. I would go to New York, and the New York Center would come to Kansas, just to get a feel for it. But almost in every state, they're farmers. There are different crops. New York is a big dairy state, but I think a little taste of country life would make them more receptive to bills that affected rural America.
When we went into the break, I asked, as you look back, are there things you would have liked to do a lot more of and a lot less of? We'll go with, what would you, looking back, like to have done a lot less of in your career in politics?
Meetings. We had more meetings, and there was always one or two people who were late. So you have 10 people in the room waiting for 2 people. And I've had my share of meetings in my office, and some were productive, some we just sat there and waited for the late people to show up. But I think, I don't know, more or less of we had a lot of things happening in the Senate where you had a lot of votes that probably weren't necessary. We wasted a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
We took too many breaks. Every time there's a holiday, you get a week off. But now it's even more. But generally, I was pretty happy.
What would you have liked to have done a lot more of?
Probably more contact with people at home. I mean, I know a lot of guys who lost their seats because they forgot where they're from, and they were elected and then they didn't go home. And I always made a practice to, whenever I could, to come to Kansas, and it paid off. I mean, people like to see you other than election day, or election year. But even as often as I came home, I probably could have done better.
What I see now, you're still doing that, and I know the people of Kansas, and I know especially the people of Russell and Northwest Kansas really enjoy seeing you back there. I think you've seen that by the crowds that have shown up, the people that have wanted their pictures with you to do that. And on behalf of all of us at Eagle, I'd like to say thank you for doing that and making and continuing to make this part of the world a big part of your life. And thank you for all you've done, not only for the country, but for those of us that you've represented along the line. Thanks for being on our program today.
Well, Gary, thank you.
Our guest has been Senator Bob Dole of Russell, Kansas, back home for one of his tours. He'll be traveling across Northwest Kansas later on this year. I hope you take time to stop by, say hi, and get a picture with him. Thanks so much for watching The Forum here on Eagle Community Television.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.